I was recently at a tech conference and there was a group of software developers and myself having a conversation. And one of the subjects that came up was feature flagging. And I kind of shared how I've utilized it in the past, especially in enterprise level organizations. And quite a few people in the conversation were not necessarily familiar with those methods or how to even utilize it at scale or even amongst other teams. So I figured what better topic to make a project and video on besides that, since it could help quite a few people. And for those who may not necessarily know who I am, hi. I'm Danny Thompson. I'm Director of Technology at This.Labs. We're a tech consultancy that have worked with organizations like Google, Microsoft, Wikipedia, and we continue to try and help organizations hit their deadlines. So essentially, what is feature flagging? So you're going to have a feature flag Boolean, right? So maybe it's going to say something, is payment method enabled? It'll be a truthy or a falsy value. And so it's going to ask, what is the value? If it's true, enable that feature that the Boolean enables, or don't enable the feature. So what are we even talking about here? So I created a demo, and to be honest, I also wanted an excuse to use ShadCN since I haven't utilized it before, and it was actually pretty simple to use, so highly recommend checking it out. The documentation, in my opinion, is really well done, so it's kind of easy to get things going. Here, we'll kind of go through this. I've created a checkout page as an example, and so I have this dashboard here where we can enable and toggle the different methods that we want to utilize. So here's the basic example. We have an order summary with a cart total, and for whatever reason, the item that they picked was exactly $99.99. We have a payment method here, so we take Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or you can use PayPal, right? Which is cool. But what if we wanted to be different? What if we wanted to have a loyalty program for our customers that keep returning? Well, by having this enabled now, I've sent a feature flag to the back, and it shows you have 500 loyalty points. And I've actually built something similar but significantly more complex for an enterprise level organization, Fortune 500. And this is like a really valuable, real use case. Now, let's say, for example, you wanted to add another payment method. I'm starting to see this more and more lately. Maybe you want to have crypto payments there, right? Maybe you want to take Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, etc. You can do that here, and you can enable that for them to use that, and then they can pay, or we can redeem the loyalty points, right? So we have those options there. Or you can redeem the loyalty points, right? That functionality now exists because we have that toggled on, as you can see, right? So stuff like that, it's really valuable. Well, why would we want to use this? What is the point to using this? Well, for me, there's a couple examples that come to mind right away. Why would you use a feature flag? Number one, enterprise level organizations are using this every day. Think about it. If you're working on a team and the entire team is working on that payment feature, the only way that you're going to get the code from other team members is when they push it up and you're going to pull it down, right? But obviously we don't want to show that code to the end user or anyone else, right? So we're going to put it behind that feature flag so we can make sure we're not toggling it on for users that may not necessarily need to see that functionality right away. Now, here's the other thing. If you work on a team, it is absolutely necessary to utilize feature flagging, especially if we're talking about daily deployments. I've worked at organizations that say, no matter what, we got to deploy daily, right? So it means if you have unfinished code, even for your unfinished ticket, you're going to have to deploy that up, right? So obviously we wouldn't want to show that to the customer. It could break, especially in prod, it could break, right? So if it's behind that feature flag, we're making sure that we're not breaking anything there. It's being saved and all the good stuff. The other thing, now this is a big one, and it didn't dawn on people for some reason when we're having the conversation, A/B testing. A/B testing is like one of the biggest things that I can think of when it comes to feature flagging. And if you're not familiar with A/B testing, essentially the idea is you wouldn't want to put out a brand new version of a site without knowing if it tests well with your users, right? We don't want to just take an assumption because we put the effort into it. We want data to prove this was a good idea. So what you would do is instead of rolling this out to 100% of users, maybe I'm rolling it out to 20%. Maybe I'm rolling it out to 30%. And based on their interactions, I have the data to say, okay, we saw an increase in drop-offs and abandoned carts, or maybe we saw a decrease in abandoned carts. And to give you an idea, especially in e-commerce and online shopping, an abandoned cart is a term where someone basically puts items in their cart, they make it to the checkout page, and they're just abandoning it as a whole, right? We don't want that to happen because it's roughly like 85 to 90% of users, when they abandon a cart, they don't come back to that website to repurchase that cart. So some websites have logic built in where if it's a user that they have the information for, maybe they'll send them reminders 2 or 3 times to kind of make sure like, hey, you left this cart, make sure you don't forget it. But the reality is if they make it all the way to the checkout page and you lose them, they're not coming back for those items. Maybe they don't come back at all, or maybe they don't come back for that exact purchase. So A/B testing, we could say, wow, we've seen a large increase in abandoned carts. That could be a big sign of we're losing foot traffic in an area that we don't want to. We need to revisit what we're doing here. So if we were to roll that out to 100% of customers, can you imagine the amount of money you could potentially lose for the organization there? A/B testing is a great way to do that. Or if you have a homepage of a website and you have some analytics there to kind of tell you what's going on. But on that homepage, you see, wow, we're seeing a massive drop off from people on the homepage going to another step of the page. We're losing somebody here. That could be a great way to roll that out to 20% of users to see where could we be potentially losing them versus our original version, because if we rolled it out to everybody, we'd lose that traffic. And of course, one of the biggest features of feature flagging, I kind of already explained this one a little bit, disables unfinished features, but lets you work on them. So with it being unfinished, at least you can continue to work on it and make sure everything is working the way that you intend before you roll it out to customers. So I built this app and we can see here where our feature flags are. So here we have, is crypto payments enabled? And we had it set to false by default. And is loyalty rewards enabled? And we have that set to false as well. And the reason why is because we want to be able to toggle it from here. So false by nature, but if we toggle it, it will change that value to true. So by default, you won't see these features. So if the crypto team is working on the payments for that, it would still be disabled until we're ready to turn that on. Now, one thing I'll say is this definitely adds complexity to the application that you're building, right? But one big thing here that we're focused on in building this is reusability. If we wanted to add more feature flags, we can add them here and this will still scale with everything that we need. And so you can kind of see here in payment methods, we have this application here. And as I scroll down, we're using TypeScript and all the good stuff in Tailwind. I'm a big fan. But if we scroll down here, you can see this area where I added this comment, crypto payments that is toggled, toggled by feature flag. And so what we're doing here is we're saying we have this toggle here. So if it's true, we want to go ahead and display this. Otherwise, we will go ahead and not display that logic. And so we can kind of go into here and we can see the logic here that we're utilizing. So we have our feature flag. And so we're returning the flag of the name and the children. If there's value there, it'll show it. Otherwise, it'll show no, nothing there. And of course, explicit errors, so that way if we have an error that's going on, maybe we have something not explained or being utilized, we can have use feature flags must be used within the feature flags provider instead of context provider. So as we go through this code, we're using TypeScript, so we're making sure we have our types there as we go through this, and we're basically passing in our prompts for this. And so you can see here how we're utilizing everything where it's our payment method that we're looking for here. And for reference point, you can see how we're kind of utilizing this and where we're utilizing it. And just showing the default value again, since we haven't toggled anything within the code as of yet, right? So we have our payment method section. We're just using it's the selected payment credit card. If so, then we want to put this border around it and make sure that the user know that they've highlighted it. Same thing with PayPal. And you see based on the text, it will change. You'll be redirected to PayPal or your card will be charged immediately. But once I toggle the crypto flag, we now see a third option. And cryptocurrency payments processed instantly. So that messaging changes as well. It's all dynamic. So because we've built it like this, especially from that reusability aspect, we don't have to create 10 different places where we would have the logic for that specific flag. We can just add it to that core area where we have our crypto payment flag as well as our loyalty reward payment flag. Obviously, when you have two flags, it's a lot easier to maintain it like this. But what happens, especially at enterprise, we're talking 100, 200, 500, 1,000 flags, right? Your code base will be filled with them. You could still do it like this, or you can use feature flag managers where they're basically toggleable like this. And you can kind of toggle them on and off in one centralized manager as opposed to having to go in and manually deal with them. Now, the one downside of feature flagging, as far as I'm concerned, is the logic that you have to build in into your code. So it adds a lot of complexity, which is fine, but it's something to be aware of, right? You're adding complexity, but you're protecting your code, your team, and the users. Now, my code is a little bit more complicated than what you would need because of this. I wanted that toggleable feature, right? But if you didn't have that, you wouldn't need some of these items. You could even just go through a config file, so something simple like this, and just have everything just valued there, and you can put true, false, and have it change everywhere dynamically for you. But because of the way that I built this application, that's why you see some of that code there. So I don't want you to see all this and be like, wow, I got to build all this to use a feature flag. No, very simplistic in nature. Obviously, they're Boolean values. You store it in one place and kind of utilize it anywhere you need it. Now, if you're not super familiar on how you could utilize it in enterprise level organizations, what's the best way to do it? Start utilizing, practice with it. If you like this content, subscribe for more technical content like this from This.Labs.